I think, despicable way of talking about President Zelensky, talking about Ukraine, and standing up for Putin, pretty much. Many people from the conservative movement, many people were already on the train, but many of them joined a bit stronger. Elon Musk among them joined. Was really happy to jump on that train. So we'll go through some of that. We'll go through some of Trump stuff as well as some of the other things. We're supposed to have a special guest from Ukraine today, but they had like last minute problems, so we have to reschedule that. But we still wanted to do something a bit different because, as I said, Elon Musk did some comments today, which I think are worth covering. Uh, Joining me today is Jonathan Honig. Hey, Jonathan.
Great to be with you, Daniel. And I'm reminded of Miss Rand's comments. I'll paraphrase. Maybe somebody in the super chat can hit me up. But in the middle of good and evil is always evil, and there's so much seemingly evil being uh, propagated by otherwise brilliant and legitimate people out there. And I'm glad that we're going to get into some of it today and address it with our global audience of super chatters from all over the world.
Yeah, I want to go into the Elon stuff, but first I want to cover the recent comments by Donald Trump. So recently he said, uh, when it comes to sort of making the deal, he said, unlike Zelensky, Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to make a deal. Putin wants to make a deal, and he is not obliged to make a deal because if he wanted to, he would get the whole country. Uh, Zelensky has no cards up his sleeve. And I mean, Jonathan, what do you make of what kind of mind allows person to make such comments when you say, well, we should make a deal with Putin because otherwise he'll take over the world. I mean, we should make a deal with Hitler, otherwise he'll take all of Czechoslovakia. I mean, what is the difference there, really?
I mean, and that's it's really almost a rewriting of history when I listen to some of what conservatives in America have been talking about. I mean, here's a quote. We won't play the interview, but Trump is blaming the invasion on Biden and on Zelensky saying the wrong things. Not a word about the actual country that did the invading. Not a word about Russia. And it reminds me of Miss Rand's kind of comment about primacy of consciousness. These many of these conservatives and some liberals as well, kind of both sides, like see a reality that simply isn't there for whatever purpose. And it really infuriates me when it comes to something as obvious as a sovereign country being invaded by a military force, dropping bombs indiscriminately on towns and kids and churches and all the rest.
Yeah, and there is the issue of moral clarity. Some people like to say that Donald Trump calls evil when he sees that, but the fact is he is willing to negotiate with every type of evil, and the only people he's harsh on are Western countries, are the sort of victims when it comes to the war. When it,
And
yeah,
and we have so many well, they're members, they're YouTube members, and that's so important. We bring you Daniel and Razi and the team, the volunteer team, bring you 7 days a week of programming that's inspired by Ayn Rand, and a lot of it is through the help of our YouTube members, like Robert, like Bonnie, like Kathleen, like Robin. Thank you so much. And Robin has that quote from Miss Rand: "In any compromise between food and poison, it is only death that can win. In any compromise between good and evil, it is only evil that can profit." And in this context, Russia is evil. So, Trump and others saying, what's wrong with Zelensky? He doesn't want a deal. What's wrong with the Israelis? They don't want a deal. Well, who profits from a deal? Only evil. They're the ones that profit from a deal. And Miss Rand writes extensively about the immorality of sitting down and profiting or in talking with evil. Just read her work on the United Nations. Just giving them legitimacy by considering them worthy of discussion. At the same time, they're sawing off the heads of women and children in your country.
we have a super chat from Robert. Thank you so much. He says, of course, Putin wants to make a deal. I'm sure Luigi Morricone wants to make a deal too. are my Trump supporting friends thinking twice yet? I mean, yeah, this idea that Putin wants peace, but Zelensky doesn't want peace. I mean, it's such a inversion of like reality. The fact that we only look at peace, we don't look at anything like justice. We don't look at anything like what is the right thing. The fact is, Putin can go away, can get the fuck out. He has no business being there. He invaded a sovereign country. I mean, technically, this is a continuation. He originally invaded Crimea in 2014. Why would the peace mean like he gets to keep a bunch of Ukraine? I mean, would Trump during the American Civil War say, well, the southern states, they just want peace. They just want to be left alone. Yeah, they want to enslave people. They want to keep a totalitarian state or a large authoritarian state in power. There is no justice when it comes to peace in terms of dictators. There is no virtue when it comes to making deals with dictators.
Funny is that President Trump talks in these interviews I've been hearing in the last couple of days a lot about the destruction in Ukraine, all the bombing that's happened in Ukraine, the beautiful domes that have come down in Ukraine, but he doesn't administer any of the blame of that on the unprovoked aggression from Russia and the injustice of that. And it's giving in to evil at all. I believe even sitting down with evil only emboldens it. And Daniel, I have the, I guess, advantage of sitting an ocean away. You are in Europe. Many of our viewers and listeners are on Russia's doorstep, and for them to be emboldened to be able to come in and take land, and then the leader of the free world says, "All right, let's just get a deal and have some peace." That is anything but moral, and it's anything but peace.
Yeah, and even Trump says like that there are bombings in Ukraine, and so many people have died in Ukraine, as if it's some sort of weather condition that like, oh, it's just happening, and if we do something, we can stop it. No, it's Russians are bombing Ukrainian cities. Russians are killing Ukrainians. Russia gets all the blame. Every single soldier that died, every single civilian that died on either side is the fault of Russia. They have no at all justification to be there. And just a quick comment when it comes to sort of uh, Trump's comments on Zelensky as a dictator. Now, you know that he doesn't think that Zelensky is actually a dictator, because if he was a dictator, he would be on his knees, like slobbering over them how great they are, how their people admire them. He doesn't think Zelensky is a dictator, because with every single dictator, be it Putin, be it Xi Jinping, be it Kim Jong Un, he loves them. He cannot he cannot wait to become like them. And this amount of propaganda. I mean, we can go to Elon's tweet unless you want to add something.
And thank you, Apollo Zeus, for a generous super chat as well. We need them. We need your help. We need your super chats to keep inspiring people of every age, certainly young people, to pick up Ayn Rand, to use and utilize some of her ideas in discussions and integrate into your own thinking. And then, ultimately, it's not just for winning arguments; it's for bettering your own life, thinking more critically. I know for me, Daniel, it's like I always feel like I lived in black and white, and then I discovered objectivism and live in so much more vibrant color now. So pick up these resources and explode your life in the best possible way.
Now let's go. Basically, recently, what Trump has another comment that Trump has made is that Zelensky is deeply unpopular. He only has 4% approval ratings. Now he came out with that from the place he takes out many things out of his ass, because there is literally we have no idea where he even took that number from. Now, according to the International Institute of Sociology in Kiev, the Zelensky's approval rating is 57%, down from around 90 when the war started. So large drop, but still largely supportive, and most importantly, a bigger approval rating than Trump ever had, and currently is sitting at like 40 to 45%. But Yeah, Jonathan wants
No, and
to.
it just seems to again kind of to evaluate Vladimir Zelensky's approval rating seems to again to be kind of a bit of a kind of a bait and switch to turn your eyes and gaze away from the reality that this country was invaded, by Russia, brutally invaded by Russia and continues to be occupied by Russia, and that's wrong. That's immoral. That's unjust. Even if Zelensky has a 1% approval rating, then that's the pink elephant in the room that has to be discussed.
But let's go to what Elon Musk said on this. Basically, something that happened is when people started sharing the 4% approval rating on X, the community nodes got in and said this number has no basis, and you shouldn't use that because that's the function of community nodes. It's the sort of fact checking that X uses. Now, this is Elon Musk's response to hearing about that. Unfortunately, community nodes is increasingly becoming gamed by governments and legacy media. Again, that's his feature that he implemented. And now he has a problem with it when it doesn't agree with him. Working to fix this, it should be utterly obvious that the Zelensky-controlled poll about his own approval is not credible. Again, no basis to make that comment, no basis to say that this is a Zelensky-controlled poll. If Zelensky was actually loved by the people of Ukraine, he would hold an election. He knows he would lose in a landslide, despite having seized control of all Ukrainian media, so he cancelled the election. He didn't cancel the election. He literally cannot hold an election. If he held an election in Ukraine, it would be unconstitutional. According to Ukrainian constitution, when there is a martial law, you cannot hold an election. Now, you might have a problem with such a law. In America, there is no such thing. You cannot suspend election. There is no legal process to suspend elections, and you have to hold them whatever happens, if it's a civil war, if it's a World War II. That's a difference between countries that you can have a problem with, but you cannot say he's a dictator. He is following the law.
Which is so backwards to me, Daniel. It's like, I remember growing up in the 80s, and we would write letters to what were called at the time refuseniks, people who were trying to leave Soviet Russia to get out and to be free. And the mode of the country, the ideology of the country was empathy for people who lived under totalitarianism, lived under authoritarianism. And to see not only President Trump but also Elon Musk, seemingly, I won't say partner with, but kind of placate obvious aggression from Russia. I just don't get it. I think it really does such terrible, I won't even say damage to America's brand. It just does damage to America. It does damage to the West and to anyone who actually cares about being free.
Yeah, and I only would add on my last comment that also when it comes to even the martial law, it has to be approved by both the president and the Verkhovna Rada, the parliament of Ukraine. So even then, he needs his legislature to sort of continue even with the martial law. So again, someone who uses a parliament is not usually referred to as a dictator. But continuing with what Elon Musk said, in reality, he is despised by the people of Ukraine, which is why he has refused to hold an election. I challenge Zelensky to hold an election and refute this. He will not. President Trump is right to ignore him and solve for peace independent of the disgusting, massive graft machine feeding of the dead bodies of Ukrainian soldiers. So now again, the blame, we are blaming the victim. It's the fault of the Ukrainian president, the fact that Ukrainians are dying. It's not President Putin's, which again, we wouldn't call President Putin a dictator, of course, because that would actually be calling things what they are, as Elon Musk doesn't like to do. We don't call him the responsible here. We don't call the Russian army. We don't call the private militaries of the Russian armies that are doing. We don't call North Korea that also has some soldiers there, or Iran that provided Russia with weapons. No, we call Zelensky, the president who, when Russian army was few days from Kiev, he stood the ground and he said, "We will not get out. We will fight." And as long as there is a support for us, we will continue fighting because this is wrong. As he said, we don't need airplanes, we need bullets. Or basically, I don't need to get out of this country, I need to fight for this country. And the it's
And
real
and
depravity.
and many conservatives had said, well, are you ready to go fight for Ukraine, or is you're ready to have your son or daughter go fight for Ukraine? But America up to this point, Daniel, the West has not provided soldiers. Zero soldiers, to my knowledge, have been participated in military, on Ukraine's behalf. Weapons have been sold, and a lot of that is income industry for American industry. You could say, I guess that's a positive, but fighting evil, standing up to evil, standing up to aggression, should be uh, an idea that everyone can get behind.
Yeah, and even so, just for clarity, there has been some talks in like recent days. I think French, Germans, and some other European countries, part of NATO, have discussed potentially sending some people to Ukraine. Now, that is only a discussion. We don't know where it will go. It's pretty much Europe's response. Europe's basically being really scared about what's going to happen because, of course, it's in Europeans' interest to make sure Ukraine doesn't fall. I mean, if Ukraine falls, who's next? And what happens when Russia invades a NATO country? Will we defend it? Or will we say, it's only Latvia? Who cares about little Latvia? Should we die for Latvia or any other? I just picked Latvia because it's one of the Baltic countries, one of the smaller ones. But any other country, should we die for Finland? Should we die for Slovakia, where I'm from? I'm right next. When after Ukraine, it's Slovakia. If and that's one of the weakest points. So the question is, what happens if we no longer uphold any sort of moral standard when it comes to you simply don't invade nations like that? Um, Jonathan?
Right. That's it. Just to see this in the big context of you had, two nations, and one was invaded by force, totally unprovoked. And why others on the right and even in the left, would try to spin it in some other way. They had it coming, it was provoked. It's so distressing when so often what freedom needs is just a voice. It needs someone to stand up and say, I won't sanction this. This is not okay. And that's always been the United States role, is to be that true leader in the free world. And it's so frustrating to see that we are shirking it in this context.
Thank you, Alexei, for your super chat. He says about Musk, what happened between him giving access to Starlink to Ukraine and now being an engine of Moscow's propaganda. I mean, it is really a fall from grace, or whatever you want to call it. He bought into the propaganda. He bought into tribalism, basically because Biden was pro-Ukraine and we are pro-Trump, we have to be anti-Ukraine. Basically, tribalism has consumed the mind of many people on either side, to be fair, but this is what we are dealing with right now. Now, I think there was one more comment I wanted to comment on, but generally, I think we'll continue following this, of course. Oh, I remember. Someone has said multiple times something along the lines moral support costs $0. And that is absolutely true. Even if you make some case about maybe it's not the purpose of American tax dollars to send aid to Ukraine, you could make that argument. Morally, Ukraine is absolutely in the right, and it costs nothing for the West to stand up for Ukraine morally. When was the last time we had a president who was as clear for calling out the evil as someone like, for example, President Reagan, who said, Gorbachev, tear down that wall. We need someone like that. And Trump is not even close to that. Jonathan, any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Sure. Thank you to all of our super chatters and our supporters. My most recent book is called Can You Really Love a Dog? Leonard Peikoff and Ayn Rand on Pets. And it's all about Miss Rand and Dr. Peikoff's philosophical perspective on your dogs and cats. Can You Really Love a Dog at Amazon.
Thank you for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Bye bye.